And as I bounce around again in my head, I want to go flashback while I got you. When I had Rachel Bolan on, he told a funny story how he kind of bonded almost kind of with Izzy Stradlin, which was funny because he wasn't around much. Like he spoke to Rachel more than Izzy spoke to his actual bandmates the entire
That's
tour.
true. That's true.
But if you don't, because I'm just asking, I'm not like a tabloid or kind of dirt situation, but that's just a funny story that came up. So do you have funny story, anything that comes to mind when you think about, all those years ago touring with Guns N' Roses, anything that comes out?
Well, I remember I played on Duff's first solo record, Believe in Me. And that all came out of building a relationship with Duff that I still have to this day. I actually managed him for a little while as well. And I adore him. I think he's one of the sweetest, humblest, strongest people I've ever met. And at that particular time, he was working on this solo record after their shows were over. He'd go to a studio at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And we were getting friendly and stuff. And I don't know whether I said, hey man, I would love to be a part of it. And I probably what would happen. And he was like, absolutely. Come on down and play on it. I was like, this is great. And so after the shows, we would get in a car and go to a local studio, whatever city we were in. And we'd go in the studio and be there from like 1 in the morning to like 6 in the morning. And it was great. I had such a great time. I loved playing on his music, and I loved being directed as far as what he was looking for. And but it was pretty crazy because we were all imbibing at that time as well. So there was a lot of drunkenness going on. And I did my best to keep up. And much to the dismay of my liver, I was able to hold my own. But I have nothing but fond memories of that whole time. And one of the interesting things of that tour was I remember when our records both had finally come out. Like ours had come out a couple months ahead of theirs. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. And I think we were in Denver. And Rachel and I went out to a club, Slash and his bodyguard, and maybe a couple of the other guys were there, but we were sitting at a table with Slash and hanging out. And there was a band there, a cover band, and they ended up playing Monkey Business. It was the first time we had ever heard any band play Monkey Business, and it had only been out, a month or two. And I forget what Guns N' Roses song they played. Oh gosh, it might have been You Could Be Mine. I'm not sure, but it was probably something off the Use Your Illusion record. But it was just really something to be a part of that moment and realize, like, we had just had a #1 record and they had #1 records, and we were touring together. And it was just a great hard rock tour. And I wish we could have done more shows, because I think from an audience perspective, it was really, I think people really got their money's worth. I think both bands were firing on all cylinders. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there were some nights that I would have a rough night, or the band might not be up to snuff, but the excitement of it was still there. That vibe that something special was happening was there.
That's I appreciate. That's why I asked these stories, because I was too young then. I was into the Muppet Babies, early Michael Jackson. I mean, it wasn't like I was born in '83. Sorry, just so you have a basis to understand it. But I love
Sure.
hearing about that because that's like that tour, the Use Your Illusion tour. It's like nothing like that will ever happen again. And it's just to be a part of it. Anyone who I feel like is a part of it, and that's just a part of it, not even including your own history with Skid Row. It's just like, wow, to be a part of that. We just didn't know what was going to happen every night. And and if
No.
things went well, you were going to have probably the best rock show ever that you've ever seen. You know,
Yeah, but then you have a moment like St. Louis, and it's like, oh my gosh, when the riot occurred. And it's so weird because I had a bad feeling that afternoon. Like we were only the second show that was in that venue. And I was talking to this 18-year-old kid, and I'm like, well, what do you do here? And she was like, oh, I'm part of security. I'm like, how old are you? She says 18. I'm like, oh boy. Like the first show I think they had there was Jimmy Buffett. I'm like, this is a far cry from that. And my God, I hope you don't get hurt in any way, because this could get really crazy. And it got obviously much, much, much more crazy than I could have ever imagined. I never thought there would be a riot, and didn't even realize to the degree of what was going on until we got to Chicago, I believe it was. And Rachel and I got to our hotel room. We put on CNN. We put on a TV, and it happened to be on CNN. And we're seeing this going on. And I'm like, Rach, come check this out. This is wild. And didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden it's like Guns N' Roses. And we're like, oh my God. I go, that's us. That's our show. And it was far beyond what I thought it would have turned into. And I'm just thankful that no one died. Because it was, I mean, I learned more about it watching it on TV than I did by being there, because as soon as things started to go a little bit haywire, we got out of there. And it was Izzy's bus driver, I believe it was, or Izzy's security guy, or both, that said, things are starting to get out of hand. Let's get out of here. Follow us out of here. So we followed his bus out of the venue and made our way to the next city. And unfortunately had to cancel some shows because so much equipment, PA and backline got ruined. And so we had you gotta get new equipment for PA and some of their amplifiers and things like that. And that took about, I don't know, maybe 5 days or something like that to get all that replaced. And then we were back on the road. But it was, talk about an experience. And like I said, you don't know what's going on until you see it on the news. It's like, really?
The days before this, the phones.
Oh yeah.
It's just like where everything is instant Twitter. People are making news with lives. And former Guns N' Roses manager Doug Goldstein, he's told me that they were referred to as the CNN band, Guns N' Roses. So that kind of verifies that, the CNN band.
Doug is an old dear friend of mine. I love him.
Yeah, no, we're friends as well. He's an interesting character. He's a good guy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, right on. So I could talk to you for hours. I appreciate those stories. But to kind of wrap things up, is it anything with the gangs all here? Are you already thinking about new music, or are you just, because we're on digesting this, or is it just like gangs all here touring all of next year and just have fun?
Usually, well, it's kind of all those things. Eric has brought like another creative voice to the band. He's an amazing singer, and he's an amazing person. He's got such a great outlook on stuff and on life. And he's very creative. So he's a really good guitar player. He's a really good piano player. And he writes. And so we've already put together, I don't know, like 3 or 4 things so far for the next record. And we usually don't work writing songs. We've never been really good at writing songs on the road, but maybe this time around with Eric being in fold, maybe it'll be different. We certainly come up with a lot of ideas and record them on our phone at sound check and stuff like that, and then go revisit them and make sure that, you know, it's as good as we thought it was then. And it doesn't happen every time, but a lot of times it does, where the idea is a really strong idea.